also been able to also make plans at the beginning of this year, but surely for one or two reasons, things didn't work the way they expected. And that is all God's arrangements. But the question remains, how focused do you remain and how committed do you remain to achieving those goals? Because if you look at also next year, then you will be realizing that also it is actually a year where we are going to be so busy with issues of elections, where we are going to be having a lot of issues to be discussed also in a way that we are going to be also receiving a number of people coming to us and also to request our votes also in there. And that is exactly what we are going to be seeing. And remember, the Electoral Commission is already in the process of mapping all the people with disabilities, and the exercise did end, and I do understand that this is actually to identify their numbers, so that's already planning for them will be possible in there as we get move on. And remember, that is what exactly we have been keenly following up on, and we have over time wanted to see this also really come. And now we are counting down the days to also make sure that we are actually prepared and ready for everything also in there. But the question is, how, maybe, what kind of leaders do we want to also have? Also leaders is what really matters, and that is exactly what we must also interest ourselves in. And now starting off our discussions with what's happening in Masaka, but related to what's happening in Western sub-region, a safety concern has been raised as grocery market crowds swarm highway in there is another story that we are seeing, and this is happening in Kasese. And with Kasese's grasshopper known as the season in full swing, hundreds of also vendors and buyers have taken over the Kasese to Fort Portal Highway, and involvement also has raised growing concerns over the safety also of reckless driving and the sale of this product on the roads also that could have resulted into a number of issues. And why did I say this is related to what's happening in Western sub-region? If you move to areas along our Windiri market, you will realize that indeed what is happening in Kasese is a similar situation of what's happening in Western sub-region. But the question is, how ready are we to see to that also that nothing bad happens to us, as much as we are running for this delicacy, and then as we also run to also make that money? Because many of the times people also move on to these markets just because they are going to be making money. They want to make money through selling these grasshoppers. Others are buyers who buy from these people also and take it somewhere. But really, you realize that also really today that is solely posing a threat, first of all, to the drivers who may drive badly. And I really want to say this is something also really we must also really join hands and also really talk about, because if you look at what's happening in Kasese, it has no difference to the situation of what's happening in Arua City, most especially along the areas of Awindiri market. That is exactly where we see this happening, where young children are always on the market, they are not going to school, elders are busy buying, people come from all over different places to buy this delicacy. And that is where today the facility, I want to call it the Windiri Zambia, what we call Senene market. And that is exactly how I want to term it, because many of the times today we have gotten to identify that facility with the grasshoppers. And now that is exactly what we are seeing happen in Kasese. That is where we did see Brother Rider raising concern, and John Mumbere. But Brother Rider said 2 days earlier, he almost knocked a child on the same stretch, and the grasshopper dealers have minimized the road. And that is the similar situation of what we are seeing, because we are selling this in basins, in also really in sacks at the roadside, without necessarily minding of the traffic rules and regulations. And that is how dangerous it is. And therefore, we must join hands and also really continue sensitizing our community about what is happening in relation to the grasshopper market. But the question is, how prepared and how ready are we to also really make sure that nothing bad happens? And that is what we are praying for. We want to see that nothing bad indeed happens to our people, because we need the delicacy. People need money and people need also to survive. But we are saying that is where we must join hands and also make sure that this does not have any direct or indirect also implication of what is happening also really on the roads in there. And that is exactly what we are keenly following up on. And we want to see nothing bad happens, that is to the people of Western sub-region who are moving on to the streets. For these grasshoppers, what we call is a local here. And really, I had an interaction with one of the leaders really recently, and this is Andama J. Richard Ferua, the Minister for Tourism and Culture, with Lubarakari, who actually expressed dismay over the situation today. And if I can be able to quote him, he said, grasshoppers are not new. Over the years, grasshoppers had been there, because for Lubaras, they are known for planting sorghum and millet. And this is where the grasshoppers used to come, not also how it is today, where it is artificially being attracted. And for them, over the years, they used to also do that. And I remember how, when I was young, when we used to go to airfield, and airfield is actually where we used to have a lot of these grasshoppers, and we used to enter the facility in numbers, and people would actually move in there to camp there and solely make sure they catch these grasshoppers. And if you're not sharp, you will even go there and come back without anything. And today, the technique has changed. People are using now modern methods, which of course are quite good, but also as well very dangerous, because if you look at how people are catching these grasshoppers, sometimes the catch mixes with butterflies, with other flies, and that is how dangerous it can be if at all we do not also really make sure that we protect ourselves. And if we are not keen enough in terms of also consuming that grasshopper, and then we may end up consuming bad things, and that is where we may also get other diseases. But of course, that is not what we are praying for. What we are just saying is that people should be able to solely make sure that they're keen and they're serious with whatever they are doing in relation to that. And that is where, at the end of the day, we are going to be seeing people's livelihoods change, because if we are talking about that, what about the danger concerns? We are seeing that happening, and that is where people are now crowding on the roads. That is how dangerous it is. And we have also the issues of people crowding the roads. Traffic must get interested in making sure they push this people off, because if they not push this people off, a reckless rider or a reckless driver may also as well come onto the road and knock them. And that is how dangerous it is, and we may also end up regretting as a factor also happening in there. Now, leaving that aside, let's also look at let's turn our focus to what's happening in Kisoro in relation to the by-elections, where we are seeing the presidential candidates, now the presidential heads are now moving to campaign for their different also the candidates in there. And that is exactly where recently we did see National Unity Platform Party principal Robert Chagulanyi moving in there to campaign for the new candidate. And recently we also did see President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni of NRM moving to solely campaign for his candidate, where he won the people of Kisoro against issues of tribalism. And now President Museveni has asked Ugandans to stop mixing tribal sentiments and religious affiliations in the politics of the country, because this promotes hatred and escalate conflicts. And this is what I want to agree to with the president. But in most cases, sometimes we look at this happening because other tribes and other religions feel they have been thrown out. And that is why these issues come up on board. And that is what exactly I want to also really say in terms of service delivery. Let the services also really reach out to each and everyone, so that people can be able to really know that it is not religion that brings about service. And now President Museveni made the remarks yesterday while addressing a rally that is at Muramba Primary School playgrounds in Kisoro district. That is to drum up support for the National Resistance Movement candidate, that is Rose Kabagenyi in the Kisoro district woman member parliament. By elections in there, remember Kabagenyi did beat also one of those family members who was actually trying to also replace the minister, that's Minister Mateke, who died also after a short illness in there. And that is exactly what we did see, where the president did emphasize that using tribalism and religious sentiments in politics is punishable and under the Ugandan laws, and anyone found guilty suffers the consequences that include cancellation of his or her victory and a 5-year sentence in prison also in there. And that is exactly what we did see the president warning the people of this country against. But how do we also really look at all this? And that is where we must therefore join hands and put aside the issues of tribal sentiments, because tribalism has in one way or the other affected us. And this is what exactly we know. And he did also reveal that he asked also the Bishop of Muhabura Diocese, that is Right Reverend Godfrey Mbise, and the Bishop of Kabale Diocese, Right Reverend Celeste Rubaramira, to join him in fighting these two vices that are unaccepted. And that is exactly what we did see the president also really calling upon the clergy to also really rally behind him in asking also the people to also really end this vice of voting in line with religion and tribes. And that is exactly what we did see. And remember, making sectarian or tribal sentiments in this country is against the laws, and therefore we must join hands and also really talk about the negative aspects of such also really behavior. And he also asked NRM supporters who lose in the primaries to provide evidence also that NRM party leadership, so that the culprits are dealt with. And that is exactly what we did see happening in there. Remember, after losing, that is also really in the by-elections, one of the candidates under the ruling NRM government, is actually aspiring and contesting as an independent. And that is exactly what we did see happening in the now. The president also remarks came at a time when the NRM party supporters are divided between NRM flag bearer, that is Ms. Rose Kabagenyi, and the independent candidate Ms. Akifeza Grace Ngabirano, who lost the NRM party primary elections with a vote difference of about 700. And now the district NRM party chairman, that is Dr. Mateke, last month opted to support the independent candidates Akifeza Ngabirano, claiming that her victory also in the NRM party primary election was rigged by some NRM party leaders from the party headquarters. And that is exactly what we did see happening in there. And today we are keenly following up on this. We want to see how this, of course, will be ending, where issues of election rigging, where issues of vote stealings have always been there during by-elections. But the question remains, how can we ensure in the future that these issues not also emerge? Because many times I believe this is also having an implication on the quality and the judgment of our democracy, because somebody out there may be saying this is actually how Uganda is democratic. But how do we also really talk about these issues where in by-elections every time we are seeing people running to court, where we are seeing people sort of feeling disgruntled, and I really feel there's a lot more that needs to be done. Now the NRM party vice chairman, that's for Western Region, Dr. Chris Barrio Musi, and the NRM deputy national treasurer, Ms. Jacqueline Chiatuhaire, say the bad seedlings of using tribes and religious affiliations must be properly handled before they escalate, and propose that a reconciliation meeting should be held to reunite the party supporters. And that is exactly what we did is happening. Now commenting on the unfulfilled presidential pledges on tamaking tourism roads, Mr. Museveni said this government won't fail to handle small roads, since they tarmacked already Kampala to Mbarara Kibale via Kisoro to Bunangana Chanika Road, which is more than 300 miles, and that means the people should therefore be keenly as they are going to be working on this. And that is according to what the president said, and according to electoral roadmap. Open campaigns of Kisoro by-election district MP started on November 1st and closed yesterday, and polling will take place today. And the candidates are Rose Kabagenyi, the National National Movement Party, Akifeza Grace Ngabirano, who is also under NRM but lost, and now is going to be vying as an independent, and this is where I believe the race is going to be mostly. And Julius Musanase, who is of Forum for Democratic Change, Aisha Champey, who is of the People's Progressive Party, and Mebo Ingabire, who is also of the UPC, whom we did see the party leader of the UPC also really rallying support for, and he actually asked the people of Kisoro what they have gotten out of this regime over these years. And that is exactly what we did see happening in, that is Kisoro. As far as this by-election is concerned, the voting will be taking place today, and come tomorrow I will be letting you know who was victorious and who made it, and that is exactly how we shall be seeing this also continue. For now, we are taking a short commercial break in case you have just joined us. Please stay tuned, we are bouncing back shortly. My name is Farish Majid.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
In the dance of shadows and light lies the heart of Uganda's resilience amidst the challenges of the night, where innovation meets necessity and education refuses to be dimmed, where connection thrives in the absence of power. Embrace the power of the sun with StarTime's solar range of solutions, and empower your journey towards a brighter tomorrow. StarTime Solar. Power your life.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from that short commercial break. We are back into the second half of the show. My name is Farish Majid. In case you are just joining us right now, you are most welcome, and we take the honor to also have you on board. From wherever you're watching us from, we say thank you so much and welcome on board. We are still doing the discussions up to 9 o'clock, and earlier on we're talking about the issues of grasshopper season, where people have taken it to the roads. But how risky is this, given the fact that we also have other dangers? For instance, early pregnancy, defilement, rape, which are all associated with the grasshopper period. As parents, now that most of our learners are home, most especially those who have been in candidate classes, those who have been senior 4 already home, those who finished senior P7 are back, and those who are in senior 6, anytime from now, we may start receiving them back home, most especially those who are doing MEG. Anytime from now, we shall be having them home with us. But the question is, how safe are these learners as they are coming back home? And how prepared are we as citizens to make sure that these learners are safe within this period where nothing bad should be able to happen to them? And that is exactly what we are praying for, and exactly what we are looking out for in terms of making sure that this season does not also have any implication, most especially negatively, on our children's lives. That is where we're going to also leave the discussion aside with, and as we now begin of our discussions with what's happening right away in the second hour. This is on the monitor. We are still where the Bunyoro King did return after being hospitalized for a long period of time, but leadership crisis in the region have persisted on, and now the Bunyoro Kitara Kingdom was filled with joy on Tuesday this week as the kingdom officials and the residents gathered at Boma grounds in Hoima City to receive back the Mukama, that is Solomon Gafabusa Iguru I. After being sick for some time, Mukama was airlifted, remember, from Hoima for treatment in Kampala on October 17th, and they returned to the kingdom also in a UPDF chopper, and that is how we did see possibly coming to also have him. And remember, the facility where he was taken remains unknown. And now decision to seek specialized medical treatment followed on October 3rd Hoima High Court ruling by Judge Jesse Biarohanga, and that is exactly what we did see, where court did order that Mukama Iguru be taken for advanced medical care, ideally in India or another top medical facility, responding to an application filed more than a decade ago by former Kingdom Tourism Minister, that is Prince Kasoro Apollo, and this was also really because the king's caretakers allegedly denied also the Mukama's access to hospital for specialized treatment. Also really, that is also really something which we did see, yet his condition was deteriorating, and that is what we did see happening in there. Now that he's back, we hope the issues of the leadership also crisis should be able to be put aside, because this is not only happening in Bunyoro Kingdom. In Buganda, the same thing is happening, and I believe elsewhere the same scenario could be happening in there. But how do we also address this? And this is where I expect now the government to come up on board to address this, because I believe government has the powers in terms of ending these conflicts. If you look at also how maybe this government did, this is actually the government that did restore these cultural institutions after they were banned by one of the former leaders. But exactly how it is also operating today, I believe the government also really still must come up and give guidance to some of these institutions. Now that's what we did see happening in there, and somebody will be asking what's happening in Bunyoro Kingdom. Now Gafabusa's reign on Mukama Solomon Gafabusa Guru first ascended the throne also on June 11th, that is 1994, at Karuzika Royal Palace in Hoima, following the restoration of the kingdoms by President His Excellency Yoweri Museveni. However, due to the ongoing health issues, he has been unable to perform his official duties over the past 5 years, a situation that has tested the resilience of Bunyoro's traditional leadership structure, and that is exactly what we did see happening in there. But we hope these issues of also really what's happening in Bunyoro sub-region are being dealt with. We want to see how this, of course, will be airing. Now, leaving that discussion aside, remember, recently we had chaos in Parliament. This was only during the passing of what we call the National Coffee Bill, which is actually a crop that is also grown in Uganda sub-region, and in Bunyoro also some people still plant coffee, and that is exactly what we did see happening, where now the opposition leaders are demanding answers from Parliament. That was also where we did see a raid by unknown security operatives. And that is where now we are seeing this happening. But now the leaders, and also the parliament, also most especially in the opposition category, led by Honorable Joel Sonyinyi, have demanded to know about the unknown security operatives that also did storm the parliament during the deliberations of the National Coffee Amendment Bill of 2004, which actually did go on successfully, but now they are demanding answers on what exactly could have happened and who these groups could have been. Now, speaking to journalists at Parliament also yesterday afternoon, Mr. Sonyinyi said as soon as Parliament resumes, we shall ask for answers from Speaker Right Honorable Anita Mong about also really the unknown security officials who erupted also in Parliament last week prior to the processing of the National Coffee Bill. And that is exactly what we did see happening in there. But how is this also something we must understand? What the rules say, and that's in relation to people accepting also really to enter Parliament. And that's where it remains unclear when plenary will resume, since Mr. Among adjourned also the House indefinitely undersigned die. And that is exactly what we did see happening. And before the fracas, Kilak North Member of Parliament, that's Anthony Cole, had a fracas with, that is also Tiana's municipality counterpart, that is Francis Zake, who has been hospitalized at Nsambia Hospital, where the issue is now taking another trend, where we did see Zake asking also the Member of Parliament to apologize and compensate him. On the other hand, we also did see the MP who punched also asking for apology from also the Member of Parliament, and we are still following up, and I believe these lawyers must be getting ready to also really tussle it out in the courts of law, and that is exactly how we shall be seeing. And a day after the fracas, Mr. Zake revealed that he was engaging a legal team, and that is exactly what we did see. And that is where in the same vein we did see saying he promised to rally the citizenry to a dissolution by the enactment of the National Coffee Amendment Bill of 2004 that scrapped UCDA, and that is what exactly we did see happening. And where the opposition groups had actually said no to the merger of UCDA back to the Ministry of Agriculture. But it happened. Now it has happened, and that is where the opposition, we also not feeling happy about it. And now that's where we did so. November 6th, Parliament, chaired by Speaker of Parliament, that's Right Honorable Anita Mong, processed and passed the National Coffee Amendment Bill of 2004, effectively also sending the Uganda Coffee Development Authority back to the Ministry of Agriculture. And that is exactly what we have been keenly following up on. And that's exactly what we have been seeing. And now that is where rationalization has still continued, where now the entities have already moved back to the ministries, but many people are still saying more of the entities should be merged. And what is the opposition saying? Opposition is saying rationalization should start right away from State House. Why is this happening? Mr. Sonyinyi Joel, the leader of opposition in Parliament, says that the units in the State House are duplicating their roles of the ministries, and the leader of opposition in Parliament did also say that and asked President Museveni to disband or merge all the units that is created in the State House if the government rationalization policy is to achieve the main objective of saving taxpayers' money. And he actually said this also really, speaking also really on November 12th, for the first time since Parliament passed the controversial National Coffee Amendment Bill of 2004. That was last week, where Mr. Sonyinyi also actually did ask this, the State House to stop duplicating also their roles, which the ministry is also really in line also doing, and that is what he did say. This is to save taxpayers' money, if at all the issue of mergers or rationalization is indeed for the right purpose. And how ready are we to see that also this merger national policy takes place? And in response, we did see the special presidential assistant for press and mobilization, Mr. Farouk Chirunda, say the opposition is politicizing the rationalization debate, and that is exactly what we did see coming out from Mr. Farouk Chirunda in response in there. That is in relation to the demand of that is leader of opposition Parliament Joel Sonyinyi as far as this matter of rationalization is concerned. And that is exactly what we have been following up on. And remember, this is a developing matter and has been there over time in there. Now, Parliament has last week passed the bill which rationalized, that is Uganda Coffee Development Authority, and transferred it back to Ministry of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, which is abbreviated as the MAIF. And the bill was passed after a chaotic session characterized by ugly scenes in the House, where people were able to have punch. Others also witnessed power being switched off. The microphones also did go off, and that is where we were able to see unknown security operatives in plain clothes uniforms storming Parliament, which something also really the leader of opposition in Parliament didn't feel also really happy about. And he said when plenary resumes, they are going to be demanding for answers about whoever entered parliament without necessarily also really making sure that they also really have these issues. Now the energy and state deployed to have the bill passed solely, Mr. Senyu said, should be the same used to abolish the units which require simple presidential directive, and that is exactly what we did see. However, Mr. Farouk Chirunda, the presidential press secretary, has said all the units serve a special purpose, supplementing operations of mainstream structures or counter-checking on them, and that is exactly what we are seeing in response. That is to also the issues of the mergers. Because Mr. Senyu also did rally farmers to continue growing coffee, much as UCDA, which is actually an umbrella body that has been also bringing together coffee farmers, has now moved under the Ministry of Agriculture. Animal industries and fisheries also in there, and that is exactly how we have seen that happening. Now, Mr. Joseph yesterday wondered why Mr. Museveni could go to such an extent, inviting only also critics without listening to the accused as well, and that is what exactly he felt also as far as the matter of also the deliberations were concerned. Remember, if you look at also the day after the resolution, this is something that happened. Many people also did not feel well that the issues of the other groups was not heard, and that is exactly how they feel that this is something that shouldn't have been done that way, and that is where we're going to be leaving that discussion aside. And moving on, you can still share your thoughts, and you can keep them coming through on this issue of the relations. Will it work? Will the government hit to this? Definitely, you should be able to share your thoughts and opinions in relation to the matter that we are discussing this early morning. And remember, it is a Thursday, the second last day of the show for this week, and tomorrow is actually where we shall be also really having our final discussions for this week, and that is where we are going to be leaving this discussion with. And as we get move on, remember today issues of misusing social media is becoming overwhelming, and many of them are now being charged under the Computer Misuse Act. Young people are landing themselves in trouble. A few days ago, we did some TikTokers being arrested and convicted solely for staging issues solely of undermining others. Now another has been arrested and convicted for also staging mock trial, that's of President Museveni, and that's also something which we are seeing, and where a 21-year-old TikToker has been convicted of hate speech and spreading malicious information about President Museveni, who is 80 years old, after he pleaded guilty before Entebbe Chief Magistrate Court. And Emmanuel Nabugodi, who was arraigned before Entebbe Chief Magistrate Stella Maris Amabilis on Wednesday before he confessed to using TikTok account, that is Risk027, to share videos referencing President Museveni, whom the state also says he intended to demean, degrade, and also promote hostility against. And the state attorney, Mr. Paul Aheba Biamukama, told court that Nabugodi committed offenses in September this year, and that is how he is now being arrested also for those charges, and he will be also answering for the crimes that he did commit in there. Mr. Biamukama added that in the same video, the accused went on to say that Madam take away the president, remove his trousers, and cane him 20 strokes for trying to play with us. And after reciting Nabugodi's presentations, Mr. Biamukama asked court to sentence him to 7 years in prison, that's maximum punishment for offenses, or fine of shillings 1.5 million for each account, also to deter commission of such offenses in future. And that is exactly what we are seeing happening. Now the TR Nabugodi, who was also charged with hate speech and with which is contrary to section 26 subsection 1A and C, that is also under the Computer Misuse Act, spreading malicious information contrary to section 2 of the Computer Misuse Act still, and prohibition of use of another person's SIM card contrary to legislation 29 subsection 1, that is of the regulation of the interception of communication regulation 2023, pleaded to the charges and asked for pardon, and that is exactly what we did see happening in there. Remember, he's not alone, he's not also the first person being charged, and Nabugodi is the fourth TikToker to be arraigned before court in 2 days on allegations of hate speech and malicious information about also really Mr. Museveni, his family, and the National Resistance Movement associates, and that is what we are seeing also really them being arrested, and that is what we also need to also make sure that possible desist from these practices. And the other three were returned to the same court on Wednesday and further remanded pending completion of police inquiries into the offenses, and that is exactly what we are seeing. And they included 1-year-old David Sengozi, also known as Lucky Choice. We have Julius Taeba, a 19-year-old, and as well as Isaiah Sagagiri, a 28-year-old, where we did see Our worship Mr. Awisi also remanded them to Kigo prison also until November 25th over hate speech and spreading malicious information about Prem Museveni, the first lady Janet Katara Museveni, and the first son General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. And that is exactly what we did see happening in there. And that is what exactly we must also be able to talk about. And we must also ask people to desist from tendencies of misusing social media. And this is the disadvantage of social media, where people can post things without being checked properly. And that is a negative also aspect of what we call the new media, where everybody can post whatever they feel they should post. And this way it goes, nobody matters. And today I want to tell them that also you think that you don't have any editor to check also what you're going to be posting through. But the Computer Misuse Act is going to be coming for you. It's going to be also making sure that you land yourself in trouble. And that is how dangerous it is. And therefore, we must also join hands and end the issues of the Computer Misuse Act, which is something happening in our society. And really, I wouldn't also want to encourage people to go on with the behavior of the misuse of the gadgets. Don't misuse your gadgets. Use them for the right purpose. Make sure you use them if at all you cannot also really maybe have also something you're doing. Avoid the tendency of attacking others, because much as you are going to be getting the viewership, much as you're going to be getting the followership, but where it lands you remains unknown. And that is how dangerous it is. And therefore, we must all join hands and end this vice of computer misuse. Over 1.7 learners failed to reach senior 6. Very true and very dangerous. Here's another story we're seeing on the paper this morning. This is on the monitor. How many learners we are there in primary 1, and how many of them have completed senior 6? You will realize that also really the numbers are not matching. Many of the young people are getting married, others are dropping out for different reasons, and that is where we are talking about this. Now at least 1,735,792 learners from both private and government-owned schools who make senior 1 in 2019 failed to make it in senior 6. That is according to stories we are seeing and the research conducted so recently, and that is where we are saying this is very much bad. And an analysis by also this publication based on the Ministry of Education data show that at least learners who enrolled in primary 1 in 2012, few also made it to P7, and that is how dangerous it is. It means that people are not completing education circles. And the question remains, as parents, as guardians, as community members, what are we doing exactly to make sure that this does not go on? Yes, today we are talking about issues of early marriages, early also pregnancies. These are contributors. Poverty is another factor which I really want to say is also affecting this, because many parents wouldn't also really have the monies to make sure they pay these learners up to the last education cycle, and that is how at the end of the day we see learners resorting to very, very, very bad practices, and which at the end of the day land them in trouble. But the question is, how can we ensure that this does not go on? And as parents, how can we make sure that our learners complete education cycles? Because this is really alarming. Many times in the Western sub-region, we don't even see our learners finishing education cycles. I want to agree with this data that is coming from Ministry of Education. This is quite true, because you have to go and do a check on the learners that joined senior 1 in 2019. Find out how many of them are finishing senior 6 this year. Many of them could have dropped out. Others could have gotten married. Others could now be doing other jobs, but like border. And that is how dangerous it is, because if we do not also complete education cycles as people of Western sub-region, then we are going to be a region that is still backward, because there's one thing that can be used as a tool in terms of transforming society. That is education. Without education, I really want to say that you are not going any far. You are not going any far, trust me, when it comes to these issues. And that is why we must always embrace education. We as people of Western sub-region, we must take education keenly, because if we don't take education keenly, then these statistics will be able to haunt us in the next coming years. Because if at all 1.7 learners, this is just an estimate, I believe, of learners who have failed to reach senior 6. 1.7 million. This is quite a huge number of learners who also joined senior 1. What about those who were not able to cross from P7 to secondary how many of them dropped out? This is really how alarming the situation is, and that is why I want to tell you who is watching right now, we must join hands. It's our task in terms of making sure we raise learners, in terms of making sure we educate the society. We must continue sensitizing the locals about education. Today we have the youth and the UPE. Let's take advantage of this. As parents, let's continue fulfilling our parental obligations. Let the learners get education, because if they do not get education, also at the end of the day, they are going to be the ones also to loiter, and that is how dangerous it will be to us and to everybody, and that is what we are condemning, and we therefore must make sure that we do not also really make sure that we leave the young children out. If you look at that, you will realize a number of factors actually contribute to the dropout rates. I did mention issues of poverty. Most of the parents feel educating their children is quite expensive, and they will not have the monies to make sure their children continue with education. And yet we could have done more, and that is yet another factor which we must also really join hands. Today we have a number of government programs aimed at eradicating poverty. As parents, let's take advantage of this, because sometimes the schools are also overcharging. That is why sometimes some parents find it quite expensive to educate their learners. But that is what we must also really make sure we talk about, and that is what at the end of the day we shall be seeing our region achieve. Then the issues of mindset. Yes, paying school fees in most cases is also mindset. Some parents feel paying school fees is a waste of time. Educating the children is a waste of time. Paying school fees is quite hard. Yes, it's mindset. Let's also have change in mindset. Let's understand that we can still be able to educate our children no matter the kind of situation we are. I know that most of the parents could be struggling for parents, and most of the families could be also the families that are struggling. But to educate a child is just mindset, both from the parent and from the learners. As a child who, if you know what you want, then at the end of it, trust me, you are going to be also really knowing where background, maybe where you come from. And at the end of the day, whatever little comes from your parents, you will be able to appreciate it. We have seen this happening, and to the parents, small by small, you will be finishing the school fees, because most times people do not pay the school fees once. That's why I call it mindset. Imagine where also the school fees as low as 100,000 within 3 months or 4 months. Some parents still find it very hard to complete this fees, and yet people cannot eat food at home, and that is why I call it mindset. And that is what exactly we must also really join hands and talk about, because if we don't talk about this, then the issues of high school dropout is again going to be rocking and also really affecting us in the coming years, because these children who are dropping out right now, who are getting married without education, after a few days and after a few years, they are going to be coming back to us. Yes, they're going to be coming back to us, and also really bring a lot of problems. For instance, about these grandchildren who are going to be coming to us, educating them, asking us to find jobs. These are issues, and that's why I really want to say, as parents, let us engage and also educate our children to reach at least senior 6. Recently, we did see that happening, where opportunities knock, people don't have the papers. I had opportunity to also really look at what's happening during the UPDF recruitment, where a number of young people were thrown out on grounds that they didn't have the papers. Just imagine the kind of regret, just imagine the kind of situation such a person will be going through. And that is why we must make sure our children reach out at all these levels. Because without P7 or without senior 6, there's nobody who's going to be employing. Most employers, they ask for at least senior 6. Even if you have to work as a cleaner, they will still ask for that. And that means, as parents, let us have an interest in educating our children. Let us continue talking to our children about the benefits of education, so they have a change in their mindsets. The negative tendencies of saying that there are no jobs, there's no employment. It is not like that. Education is not to get employment, but it can also really increase your chances of getting employed. And that is why, as stakeholders, we must join hands and solely improve on that. And we must also really advocate for issues of children concentrating while in schools. And that is why today, if you look at all these issues, and then you realize also really many children are dropping out. Today you see the children who are into drug abuse. These are children who are supposed to be school age going, where they find themselves on the street. We are seeing them run mad. If you move to the psychiatric department, you will have many of these children are getting also mental illnesses. Why? Because they dropped off. And many of them also do not have the opportunity of also continuing with their studies, and that is why it becomes a challenge for them. Really, it is something which I want to say is biting, but we must all join hands and also talk about this. That is where we're going to be taking a short commercial break. This is still a KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV channel 477. That's on Startimes. We are also as well on Zuku. The channel number is 0073. And Azam 369 is the frequency number where you will be in position to watch us each and every Mondays to Fridays. Meanwhile, for those of you who are abroad, maybe outside Uganda, or those who feel they want to watch us from the comfort of their phones, we are also there on social media platforms where we are live on Facebook, where you just have to search West Nile Television. You will be in position to watch us. YouTube, we are in there. That means we are not leaving you out. For now, we take a short commercial break, and we bounce back in the second hour where we shall be discussing a lot of issues with you here and there. You can still keep your comments coming in relation to some of those topics that we have discussed, and I will be going through them later on. Stay tuned.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
In the dance of shadows and light lies the heart of Uganda's resilience amidst the challenges of the night, where innovation meets necessity and education refuses to be dimmed, where connection thrives in the absence of power. Embrace the power of the sun with StarTime's solar range of solutions and empower your journey towards a brighter tomorrow. StarTime Solar. Power your life.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
And we hope at the end of the day that this also wouldn't also end just like that. All right, welcome back from that discussions. We are 6 minutes after 8 o'clock, and we do apologize for that. We had an inconvenience, but we're back to continue with the discussions up to 9 o'clock. Earlier on, we're talking about the issues of the elections in relation to the Lango Paramount chief, but now police in the area that is on Nokchoga are investigating the threats to the life of Guru resident judge, that is Philip Odoki, who annulled the separate elections that had established, that is rival Lango Paramount chiefs, also known as Wanyachi, and that is what we are now seeing. Now, following a leadership dispute between the Lango Cultural Foundation and the Lango Cultural Institution, Odoki delivered a landmark also on October 31st in High Court, also ruling also and cancelled the controversial election of, that is Dr. Michael Mos Odongo Kune and Ambassador Dixon Ogwang Okal, and that is what we are now seeing also happening. Our additional court ordered Gender and Labor Minister Betty Amongi to degazette 94-year-old Yosam Odur Ebil as Lango Paramount Chief. And that is what we are now seeing. Now, following also the ruling, an audio clip circulated on social media platforms in which an anonymous person alleged the handling about 50 million bribe, that is to Odoki also to influence his ruling in favor of one group. Now, in the same audio, Odoki is also heard accused of also to the intent, that is also bribe with the further suggestion also that he should be shot dead, and that is exactly what we are still following up on, and we are still keenly following up on, where we did see Supreme Police RSP, that's Okema, also noted that also Jimmy Patrick Okema, who is also the spokesman for the North Choga region, also is noted that also summons will be extended to some suspect, also the persons whose voice highlighting the importance of also really respecting judiciary's independence and legal processes, and that is exactly what we did see. And last week, Amongi also said government also does not recognize a bill as Lango Paramount Chief, following the October 31st ruling, that is also in Lira extending uncertainty over the leadership of the cultural institution and tensions within also the people in there, and that is exactly what is coming out from the Lango sub-region. But we hope at the end of it also lead to bloodshed, and we hope also really that people also should be able to desist from these practices. And if at all people also are not so appreciative, I believe there are channels that can still be used to sort of make sure these issues are addressed. And that is how dangerous and how it is still going on. And we hope at the end of the day, we shall be having also some bit of peace and sanity returning in relation to this matter in here. Leaving that discussion aside, still related to what's happening in Lango, 7 clan members have been arrested in a revenge attack after the mother of Lee, and that is what we are seeing now. Police in North Choga have arrested 7 clan members in connection with a revenge attack following the death of Dickens Odongo, a local businessman in Lila City, was gunned down, and Odongo also was later shot dead on October 29th of this year by a private security guard deployed at Navrov's Market. That is on Olwal Road, and Moses Opio is accused of the fatal shooting also at the supermarket, said to be by also owned by an Indian, and what exactly caused the death is also what remains unknown. And on November 6th of this year, we did see Orimakori clan members, where Odongo also belonged, traveled from Amugu sub-county in Aleptong district with separatists and attacked the family of the suspects, that's in Nakaro sub-county in Kwania district, demanding burial expenses and blood compensation. And during the scuffle, away with items including 2 mattresses, 2 bags of beans, about 8 chicken, solar lights, and also several other food items. And North Chiroga police spokesperson, Superintendent of Police Jimmy Patrick Kema, said 7 people have been arrested, and
Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium Channel 259 and Channel 246 starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and Limited Passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back to the short commercial break. We are into the final half of the discussions. I want to take this opportunity in a special way to thank whoever kept it right from the time we began until this hour of the morning. And as we are still continuing, I really want to say thank you so much for being part of what is happening in the country and also really what continues to make rounds in the world, also really across the globe in there, because as Western Television, our commitment is to keep you informed across all aspects of life. And remember, so many issues going to happen. Earlier on, we were talking about also really a discussion also really in relation to a shark who has been also really freed, but has been taken to hospital for treatment. What exactly happened? Remember, he was abducted some time back, and his whereabouts remained unknown until these few days where he was released. But who are the perpetrators and who are the ones that actually arrested this person is what remains unknown. And I really want to say these issues of abductions paint a wrong image, and that is exactly what we must also really continue advocating for against, and that is where we must also really say that this shouldn't happen. And leaving the discussion aside, one person has been shot dead, and that is as police rescued a kidnapped Egyptian embassy official. And as we continue to talk about issues of abductions, it is not only in relation to the sheikhs alone. Anybody can actually become a victim of abductions, and that therefore tells us that we must join hands and make sure that we also really are not among the group that is going to be abducted. And now Uganda police also really said in Wednesday that they had shot and killed one suspected also person during a rescue operation of an Egyptian national and an official of the Egyptian embassy who was abducted last week. And Muhammad Ali Abdul Amidu is said to have also been kidnapped on November 8th in 2024 by unidentified also persons. That was on Zana to Entebbe Road and taken to an unknown location. And police say that the kidnappers demanded a ransom of about $40,000 US, which is an equivalent, that's over 147 million, threatening to kill him if their demands are not fulfilled. And that is exactly what we did see. But now police spokesperson, that's Mr. Kituma Rusoke, has come out to also talk about this issue, and they say the kidnappers were driving a Toyota Noah with registration number, that is USZ247S, which had 3 occupants, and at the same time it was intercepted, and that's exactly what we did see. And Amidu was actually rescued unharmed, according to also the police. The 2 other suspects were still arrested and in custody to also help police investigations, and that is exactly what we did see happening in there. And we hope at the end of the day, these both should be brought to book, and really you realize also the issues of abductions have always been there, but the question remains, who are the ones responsible and behind these abductions, and what can security do to make sure the citizens are actually protected from these abductions, because the issue of these abductions have always been there. But it remains unclear where these people also are being also taken, and this is where also the money that these people also get goes, because issues of abductions have always been there, and anybody, I can really confirm to you that anybody is actually a victim and is vulnerable to this vice of abductions, because for them it's just a matter of having you arrested and then they could make their demands. We have had stories of people being killed after they failed to agree on payment of this ransom, and that is how dangerous it is. Therefore, we must avoid tendencies of moving alone or in places where we risk also being arrested, and that is how really at the end of the day we are going to be also protecting ourselves. And that means, as somebody who is also watching to me this morning, you can be abducted. Therefore, you must avoid tendencies of moving alone or of wanting to move alone in places that subject you to also those tendencies. But really that's what we're not praying for, and we hope at the end of the day we are safe, because our safety as citizens is key, and therefore your safety starts with you, and it is you to also make sure that you're safe. Even if we have security, it is still you to also really make sure that your safety matters. And leaving that discussion aside, really as we get move on, court fines traffic driver who knocked traffic officer in Kampala, and that is exactly what we did see. And remember a video that was circulating where a driver was seen ramming into a traffic officer. Now the Buganda Chief Magistrate Court has sentenced the driver who attempted to run over a traffic police officer in Kampala, and the presiding Chief Magistrate, Ronald Kaizi, also on Wednesday morning convicted Isaac Mukwaya upon his plea of guilt, and Kaizi was sentenced to a fine of 600,000 as a punishment of the charge of careless driving, failure to also of which he will also serve 6 months of imprisonment. And remember, if he does also pay this money, which I really feel is not even enough, because this person attempted to end another person's life, and now he is being sentenced to 600,000. And this is exactly not also one person also recalled, but this is what the law also states, and that is how we also going to be taking it that way. But prosecution led by Ivan Chiaze had informed also that the trial chief magistrate that Mukwaya opted for a plea bargain, which he entered also with the state for a lesser punishment. Now, according to mitigating also the factors that Mukwaya had raised also through his lawyers, are that he is remorseful and has a family and wife and children for which he is the sole breadwinner, and so he also reasoned that also that he is youthful and can reform, and that is why this also really will be giving also those also the hearing, and that's according to also mitigating factors, and that's what we did see. And it was also a prosecution case that Mukwaya on June 12 of 2023 at also the parking yard of Laika Mobile Company in Kampala drove a black Subaru Forester vehicle numbers on road without reasonable consideration for other road users, and it was also further also held that Mukwaya failed to stop when signaled by a police officer in uniform, also in execution of his duties. And according to Kampala Metropolitan Police spokesperson Patrick Onyango, said Mukwaya knocked a traffic officer at Kitgum Junction, that is on Jinja Road, before he drove off, and that is exactly what we did see. But police also note that Mukwaya had violated traffic also lights, and he was stopped also by an officer, which also when also the officer removed the front also license also now plate of the vehicle. Mukwaya knocked the officer before driving off. And in a viral video that went last year, the police officer is seen also being shoved off by the Subaru car, but also is able to also escape the incident with minor injuries, and the motorist also then drove off in the video, and that is exactly what we did see. It means that people must be able to avoid tendencies of driving these vehicles without reasonable considerations for other road users. But we hope at the end of the day that this also does not continue to happen, because if you look at issues of people who drive, most times people want to drive without necessarily listening to the advice of the traffic rules and regulations. But this is indeed a challenge. I really want to implore the rest of the drivers, most especially those who own the Subarus. Yes, we know you have made it, but we hope you also consider the rest of the road users, because the road is not yours alone. We are all road users, much as you are the ones driving. In most cases, this is common with vehicle drivers are attached to certain vehicles, most especially the Subaru, which is known for speed. But let's at least avoid tendencies of overspeeding, because overspeeding is indeed a challenge. But let's mind of the road users. First of all, the motorists who are on motorcycles, then those who are riding bicycles, these are all road users. Not forgetting the other category, and of course, who are the majority of the population in this country, the ones who are always on Futsubish. Yes, the Futsubish crew, let's also remind of them. And when we are crossing the roads, let's also think about them, because each and everyone would wish to drive. Each and everyone would wish to ride, but the timings are always different, and that therefore tells us that as you are on those driving also those vehicles in that terrible speed, be mindful, be also cautious, also be in the know that the vehicle you are owning can actually be a danger to another person's life. And just like this traffic officer who was knocked, you may also end up knocking another person, and it may not necessarily be a traffic officer, but we hope at the end of the day that these activities do not happen, and that is where we shall be seeing also this happening. And if one stopped, please find it very cool. Stop and also listen to what these people are telling you, and that is where at the end of the day we shall be seeing also this also ending, and that's what we are seeing happening. And we hope at the end of the day that also this is not to happen. Looking at some of the stories, listen to use or risk revolts. Former Prime Minister Rugunda warns, and that is exactly what we are seeing, where Uganda's former premier has warned that unless African leaders and governments also listen to the youth, they risk creating also a significant divide, clashes and revolts. And that is where we did see the former Prime Minister of Uganda, Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, who spoke during the third intergeneration dialogue for young people from across Africa, also gathered in Kampala on Tuesday, and urged government to reaffirm their commitments also to addressing the needs of the young people. And now the youth also had convened to discuss bridging the intergenerational gap in their countries, and that is exactly where he made these remarks. And this is actually what I also want to agree to, and we hope at the end of the day that this does not also really cause a number of issues. And Dr. Rugunda also said Africa has over 600 million young people, the highest also in the world, and that means most of the young population in the world, in Africa most especially, are the young people. And the former Prime Minister said the older generation is not also as well as informed as the younger generation, and especially in the current era of artificial intelligence, for instance, in areas of electronic communication, and that is how their ideas must also be heard. Now, Dr. Rugunda also asked the youth across Africa to borrow also from older generations in the methods they used to liberate their countries, and that is actually something which he did ask the young people to also learn from. Because in issues of liberations, most times the young person may not be able to have the experience. But the experience, of course, is going to be coming through from also really the older generation, which I really want to also really appreciate. And we hope at the end of the day that this is exactly what we also want to see. And while reflecting on Africa's history, Rugunda said some of the most also significant also really contributors to the continent stated that a young age, also young, and also most of you, when we look at the history of Nelson Mandela and Robert Mugabe, many began building their countries in their 20s. and you are mature enough to play a catalytic role in transforming our continent. And that is the advice the former premier was also really able to extend to the young people. And both Mandela and Mugabe were black freedom fighters who led their countries to independence and the black majority rule. And that is exactly what he is advocating and what he is encouraging to the young people. And at the same dialogue, Ms. Angel Mbuthia, the chairperson of the COMESA Youth Advisory Panel in Kenya, said the intergenerational conflict in Kenya, sparked by Gen Z, what we call General Z, the Generation Z, protests arose of the young generation feeling unheard but the status also quo, leading to the also protests that shocked not only the continent but the world, because what happened in Kenya indeed also went viral across the globe. Many people were able to see what's happened in Kenya. And Mr. Jacob Eyeru, the chairperson of the National Youth Council, highlighted the differences in knowledge, access to information, and basic needs also between today's 30-year-old and also those of the 1990s. And today, these are actually issues also that happen also, and that have been also contributing and also eating up the country. And in July this year, young people, also most Ugandans, took the streets to protest against the alleged corruption by elected leaders in the country, especially parliament drawing inspiration from also weeks of youth-led protests in the neighboring Kenya, which led also the President William Samoei Ruto to scrap proposed tax hikes and dissolve the cabinet also for close to 2 years. And that is exactly what we did see happening. In response, the two Ugandan governments deployed police and soldiers across the Kampala city, and particularly the parliament, where police also arrested hundreds of youths who were also charged and later remanded them. And remember, we did see youth-led protests in Uganda in relation to also the alleged corruption also witnessed in the parliament, drawing inspiration from what happened in Kenya. And in response, the Ugandan government also deployed police and soldiers across Kampala city, and particularly parliament, and police also arrested hundreds of youths who got arrested, and they were later released and remanded. And that is what we did see happening in India. And now in June, young Kenyans, mostly belonging to Generation Z, swarmed various streets to express their displeasure with the controversial Finance Bill of 2024 that proposed an increase, that is in taxes also, and demonstration took place in Nairobi, Kisumu, Mombasa, Eldoret, Nakuru, Kericho, Lodwar, Nyeri, Meru, and many other streets also in Kenya. That also what we did see happening is that the government also had to also listen to the plea of the young people, and this also had an implication in the neighboring countries where some groups also in Uganda were able to want to copy what happened in Kenya. But the security in Uganda was, I believe, very much alert and was able to curtail any would-be also the activity that would happen in Uganda in relation to what happened in Kenya, where deployments were all over, and in Arua city where we did also see intention of also the same, but was stopped, where some young people were actually said to be having plans to move from wherever they're coming from to the city hall. But we had deployment of the police and army, and that also really was able to also really protect any further also issues where that was already stopped. And we hope also that these issues also shouldn't also continue to happen. And that brings us to almost the end of today's discussions. But as always, we summarize the discussions with what's happening in the world of sports. But before that, we also give you what's happening internationally. And just to give you what's happening internationally, remember so many issues going to happen. Recently, we did see the Americans heading into polls where they voted for Donald Trump, who actually bounced back as the president of the United States also in there. But also a lot of issues today are being talked. And if you look at what's happening in there, Matt Gaetz quits the House after he's picked by Trump for Attorney General role, and that's also something we are seeing, where the Republicans are projected to retain their majority also representatives, where the BBC is also Donald Trump's party victory also, that's also where we did see also the people voting for him in there. Now, meanwhile, Trump has nominated Congressman Matt Gaetz for Attorney General, and he has resigned from House with immediate effect. Now, Trump also nominated for former Congresswoman, that is Tulsi Gabbard, for Director of National Intelligence, and Senator Marco Rubio to be Secretary also, and that is what we are seeing also in his appointments. And remember, after being elected, he is now also organizing his leadership. That is also going to be there for the next also coming 4 years. And that is exactly what we are seeing. And Trump is now in full control of the United States, and he will be entering what we call the White House. That is exactly where many people also have been waiting to also have him back, most especially the supporters but many also are now living in fear in relation to his foreign policy, which among others he talks about deployment. But that is exactly what we are keenly following up on, and we hope at the end of the day this will not continue to happen. And we also want to see people not living in fear, and that is where we are still following. Meanwhile, activists take on that's own life in protest. That is at an Iranian regime. A well-known also Iranian human rights activist has killed himself in protest at what you call the dictatorship of Iran's supreme leader, that is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and that is exactly what we are seeing, where people can also end their lives. Very quite sad, and at the end of the day, practices we must also condemn. We wouldn't also want to see this happening, and that is how it is going on in Iran. In there, as people are feeling also really unhappy about also the leadership that also which the term was dictatorial, but that's how they got it placed. We are keenly following up, and we want to see how this, of course, will be ending. Remember, what also many people have been also fighting against is the Sharia, with also many taking it as dictatorial. But we hope, if at all it is not also dictatorial, it shouldn't also be. You should have grounds, you should have reasons to also oppose that, and also just calling it dictatorial without any reasons. With that, we come to the end of what's happening internationally. But to summarize the day with what's happening in the world of sports, today we shall be having games in the four big league. Remember, the regional leagues are also ongoing. Uganda Cup is as well on, but the biggest also focus is in the four big league, where the leagues are getting interesting. Today we shall be having a game that is between Midco Calvary and the Boma. This game is going down in Yumbe. We shall also be having another West Nile side, that is by the Black Angels, taking on Busoga United, and this is another game which I want to say is another determinant, where if West Nile sides pick these wins, then it's going to be placing them in the best position, that's of qualifications for the next league, and that's where we shall be seeing that happening. And remember, the game also will be returning, that's on the 17th, and where we shall be seeing Buhimba taking on Gaddafi, but we still have also a lot also happening. Meanwhile, in the Southern Uganda Premier League, we are still seeing also the stories happening, and remember the international breaks is all coming back, where we shall be seeing Uganda returning up in action against also South Africa, and that is also another game that also many people also will be interested in. And if Uganda picks a draw or a win, we are already qualified for the next AFCON, and that is exactly what we are seeing happening in there, and we shall be keeping you also informed with more details of what's happening in there. But I really want to really inform you that also Uganda is just looking for a point, that is to qualify for, that is the next AFCON, and that is where we shall be seeing also really Uganda also playing again international in continental leagues. But are we going to be picking this draw against South Africa, as the team is coming to, that is Nambole, and that is actually something which we are keenly following up on, and we hope at the end of the day that Uganda qualifies already for this game in there, and that is exactly what we are keenly following up on, and want to see how this game will be ending. And the game actually will be tomorrow, where Uganda will be playing up against South Africa. And this is at Mandela National Stadium. We hope we win this game, or a draw will actually work out for us. And that brings us to the end of the discussions for today. I really want to thank whoever watched us right from the time we began until this hour of the morning. I want to say thank you so much. I really want to thank you as well for keeping it always West Nile Television from Mondays to Fridays. Up next is the News Bulletin Luwati with Feta Manuel, and of course many other interesting programs so will be coming. And remember, the last edition of the Northern Request show is actually today. DJ Jero and Olivia Yuji will be up, and they will be also bouncing back, and many other interesting programs to still keep informed, educated, and entertained as well will be coming through in the due course of the day. I want to thank my crew, that is the producer Senior Boniface, for making it also lively, and I do not also forget the cameraman, that is Senior Opak Jonathan, also for being also in there, for making me look that handsome. And I know you must have also enjoyed seeing me on your screens as handsome and as also smart that way. And really, I will be bouncing back tomorrow for the same edition and for the same program. Let's catch up again tomorrow. I'm out.